And informative radio for the Sunshine State.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a diminished value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
This is Maindry and Pace, #1 car thief in America. He'll steal anything, anytime, as long as it's insured.
Read my horoscope this morning.
His front, insurance investigation. His business, stealing cars. And now he's got to fill the biggest contract yet.
You'll deliver over 40 cars to docks by Saturday.
That's a sad story.
Listen.
You can lock your car, but if he wants it, it's gone in 60 seconds.
Get up.
Things don't always go as planned, even for a pro. Sometimes when you steal a car, you get more than you bargained for.
Holy shit.
Kara.
Who is it? Oh, hey.
The whole damn thing's loaded. Fasten your seatbelt for what Carcraft magazine calls the most hair-raising chase scene ever filmed. Hollywood Reporter says it's a thrill a minute. You owe it to your car to see Gone in 60 Seconds. It's grand theft entertainment. Gone in 60 Seconds. Rated PG.
And now for all you music lovers, it's time for your traffic report. There's a What is it, Scooby? Can't you see I'm broadcasting here? Pile up on the tri-level, got you backed up all the way to the off-ramp. So, if you're traveling this morning, try to give yourself an extra day or two, folks. Hang on, folks. I've just been handed this important bulletin. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our regularly scheduled program to bring you this special report, like live as it happens.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, this is the annoying Jay Leno, and you're listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned in to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. Run your computers and Google TAN Talk 1340.com. And you can see us live here in the studios in downtown Clearwater. Don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com. We can find out all about us. And if you've missed any of our past shows, don't forget to check out NostalgicRadioandCars.com. Good afternoon, Bobby.
How are you today?
Well, guess what? It's 16 years, our anniversary show.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, now we have a couple of special guests in the show with us tonight, or in the studio with us, I should say. My good friend, Dom Forte from way back when, the good old days, has Forte's Automotive back in St. Pete days. And then Chris Forte, his son. And so we're going to make this kind of like a factory reunion. Actually, family. That's the word I was like, factory. See, I'm thinking of factory car parts, this, that, and the other thing. But anyway, so Dom, how you doing?
Good. Actually, we started in 1956.
56?
My dad started.
56. And Chris, when did you jump on board?
I'd say I started taking over. Well, actually, I've been, since the 90s. As a little kid, I was working at the old shop on 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah, 22nd Avenue.
22nd Avenue. Wow. Okay, so give us a rundown on. Everybody knows who I am, obviously, because I kind of like do car stuff and a radio show. But anyway, so I want to, Dom, you actually like your second generation. Your dad started the repair shop, right?
Yeah, correct. My brother and I both worked there. Okay. And my brother went off to turbo action. He was big into drag racing, and he started turbo action racing transmissions out of Jacksonville. Then I went to work for him as an engineer, and we had the Chrysler contracts, built all the ones for their drag cars. And then I came back when my dad wanted to retire to take over the business. So.
And then that was what, in the early 60s then?
No, that would have been 70.
Oh, wait a minute. Ask him.
73 to 70, 75, right around there when I came back.
So, well, actually, what was like back in the day? What was the specialty that you guys did there at Forte Automotive at your dad's shop?
Well, we worked on everything. All families. Most families had 3 cars. They might have a Corvette, might have a Mustang, but they'd have, a Toyota Camry or some other car. So we worked on everything. We didn't really specialize as much. However, early on, I had a reputation for being the guy to go to with your Corvette, even though I was into Mustangs. Okay. And I did a lot of Corvette work. So it progressed from there. And then I started deciding to do restorations. But I kept on doing the regular car repair, but we added restorations to the business.
Well, when I first met you, you were at that little place there off, was it First Avenue North?
First Avenue North and 23rd Street. It started out as a Standard Oil gas station when I was a kid. It turned into a Chevron. And I do remember setting the pumps at 19 cents a gallon back then when I had the gas wars.
19 cents a gallon?
Yep.
No, what? You started driving what year?
Boy, that's a good question. It would have been around 69 when I was in high school.
Okay. So, and gas was how much in 69?
About 25 cents.
25 cents. Yeah. Okay. And then when did we have gas wars? We're not talking that 73 stuff. We're talking before then?
No, that was before that. My dad, like I said, had the station from 1956 up. And we'd get a call from the oil company saying, you got to drop your prices 6 cents. And they basically, how it worked was they would reimburse you for the difference in the price you paid for the gas prior to that. And so we dropped them 6 cents because they had gas wars amongst Texaco and Sinclair and Standard Oil. They all, would have these gas war fights on pricing.
Really? Gas wars? That's hard to believe. We need gas wars today so that they can fight these prices.
They're all cartelled up now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So for our listeners, and since you were there and you got firsthand experience, back in the day, how much profit was actually in fuel? Because it was, from what I was told, because I worked at a gas station in Clearwater Beach, you only had like 3 or 4 cents profit.
I'd say, yeah, that's correct. I was just going to say about 2 or 3 cents.
Yeah. So the idea is that it was a service station. So you went there and got gas, and then you did oil changes, brake jobs, minor repairs.
We had Bardol out front. The Bardol, which they used to do the commercials with, looked like Dick Tracy, and he'd open up his jacket and he had the Bardol for sticky. The crimesters were sticky valves, and they were the bad villains, and Bardol was the person to eliminate them.
I got you. All right. Now, you mentioned Mustangs. Let's talk about your Mustang. You have a 69 Mustang that over time morphed into a Shelby, right?
Yeah. At the time, I had actually, if you go back, my first car was a 61 Falcon with a 170, 3 on a tree.
Whoa. And
for those who don't know what 3 on the tree means, it's 3-speed manual transmission on the steering column.
Yeah. And
I bought a 64.5 Mustang convertible with a 289 automatic. It was a Rangoon red interior with Raven black outside. Really nice car. And then I learned to drive actually on my dad's Al Camino. He had a 327, 300 horse, 4-speed Al Camino, bucket seats, tack, every option. Ooh. And he got me out of that and stuck me in the Falcon because he paid $75 for the Falcon and said, I'm taking you out of the Ranchero. So that's how that went down. And I went from a nice Chevrolet, shall we say at the time, the Al Camino was a high-end vehicle, to a cheap Ford Falcon, the cheapest of the line, which I would try to beat the snot out of it because I was so mad. And it wouldn't break no matter what I did. It was super dependable, 20 some miles per gallon. Couldn't beat it. So that's when I started these Fords ain't so bad. And ended up with the Mustang. And then when I went to St. Pete Junior College, I met a friend of mine who had a 69 fastback. Actually, I don't know if I'm going too long in these stories for you.
Well, no, keep going. I'll cut you off.
He was taking engineering at junior college, and he had a 57 Chevy. We called it spot metal because you could watch the road go by at the floor. Okay. And we would race every day. He had the 265. No, he had a 283. Yeah, 283. And I had the 289 Mustang, and I would beat him every day badly. And he said, well, I'm building my engine. You just see. In the meantime, I came across a yard sale that had a F4V aluminum intake manifold and a Holley 600. And I put that on there. And while he was doing his motor. So when he got back and done with his motor, and he had a 4-speed on the floor, and he goes, hey, we going at it today after school? I said, sure, whatever, and we took off at 5th Avenue and 66th Street, and I walked away from even worse than the last time. So needless to say, he called me up on the phone. He said, what are you doing this weekend? I said, I don't know why, because we're going to go shop for a Mustang. I'm getting rid of the Chevy. So he got the 69, which I fell in love with the 69. That's how I ended up with my 69 that I found at Bert Smith Oldsmobile at the time for $2,400. And they gave me $1,100 on trade for my convertible. And my dad was pissed because he didn't like performance cars.
Oh, man.
And then 20 years later, he was visiting, we'd see all the time. But I said, hey, Dad, come out in the garage. He goes, why? I said, just come out in the garage. And he come out there, and my car was sitting there, and I go, remember, you didn't want me to buy this? I still got it. And still got it.
And still got it. That's right. Well, I remember you rolled up, that's back in the 70s when everybody used to hang out at Pantry Pride on Gulf the Bay. And so Wayne Conley had the black Shelby.
Yep.
And you and Wayne rolled up at the parking lot one time. And I don't remember. I think I had I might have had the Ranchero at the time, which I still have, by the way, since high school. But I had a 69 Shelby that I had purchased. And I bought that at the end of 75. I think that's when I bought that. And 69 GT350 4-speed convertible, which I still have, by the way. We have to put that together one of these days. Actually, you probably remember that car. So then you'd period, because you were the St. Pete crowd. You periodically show up in Clearwater.
Yep.
And then one time I had my car there, but that's how we kind of became friends. So anyway, Chris.
Yep.
So do you have a story like that about your dad? Now, I should preface by saying you guys, Chris and your brother, Anthony, you guys were very well known. And I don't know who got you into the water skiing thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it'd be my dad. Yeah.
Were you a water skier back then?
Oh, I skied all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. We lived on Lake Seminole.
Yep.
That's how we really got into it. Living on a lake, and yeah.
It was good exercise.
Lots of water skiing there.
And then, so you guys were kind of like champions back in your day, right? Very competitive. In other words,
we became competitive. A neighbor moved in next door to us who was part of a ski team. Yeah, like a show team, like you'd see it like Cypress Gardens or SeaWorld, San Antonio, or SeaWorld. There was actually a show at SeaWorld of Orlando for a little while there.
And then your big claim to fame though was barefoot, right?
No, that
was Tony.
That's
my brother.
Oh,
yeah, he was wild.
Yeah,
he's wild.
Yeah, he won our tournament 5 years in a row of barefooting, under 16, and then he won over 16, and after that he retired.
So when you were water skiing back in those days, were you as enthralled with cars back then, or was you more sports oriented?
My dad would pick us up from, I remember starting in kindergarten with he would take cars on test drives and stuff. And it was always Shelby's he owned a bunch of them too. So
yeah,
it was, Shelby's, Corvettes. It created quite the scene at the car line, as you can imagine.
Oh, at high school or grade school? Oh yeah.
Well, all the way from kindergarten up.
Yeah, you come in a different car every day to school,
Yeah.
But if you think about that, it's kind of cool because when you can do that, because I know when Bobby was a kid, I always drove something different. including my Pinto wagon, which I saw, which everybody got a kick out of that because everybody moved to Florida in a Pinto at some point in time.
Well, my wife had a Pinto 73. When we were dating.
Well, that's what your mine is, 73, the wagon. But anyway, all right. So then when did you decide that you were going to go get involved in the car business?
Well, I was skiing for SeaWorld of San Antonio.
Was that were you doing that kind of like from a semi-professional standpoint at that point?
Yeah, that's a paid show. Yeah.
Okay.
So and I was like, man, as a kid out of high school, I got that job out of high school. And as a kid out of high school, I mean, it's a pretty sweet job.
Yeah.
They pay you to water ski.
Cypress Gardens was too.
They pay you to be on the water. So I thought that was great. But between that was only a summer job. So then between those, I'd come work at the shop. And he had a couple of different cars there that we started restoring together. And one of them was my 75 Bronco, but then there were two other. There was a 70 Mach 1.
70 Mach.
Yeah. And then it was a 67 Vet, big block.
Yep.
That was yours?
No, it's my customer.
No, these were customers.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he was, he would have me do small things, and kind of watch me and tell me what I'm doing wrong and what I mean.
Well, both him and a brother, I told him, I said, you do anything that's not normal wear and tear on the car, and you're not driving. And his brother would go, I think you could smell the oil and tell if we did something wrong.
So when you were down there on 22nd Avenue, because that was when you kind of got involved in it, was it just kind of like a part-time gig with him? Were you still pretty serious about it? And the reason I'm saying this is because, people out there don't realize that there is a career and a profession in auto mechanics. So whether you're working at a dealership or and it's a good job. Okay. Because there's nothing better than when you build something, fix something, right, Dom? And you can stand back and say, I did that. And now you can actually experience that. So, and we need more people in the industry, younger kids, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you got talent, I've been paying people in the mid 30s per hour at this,
$30 an hour.
Yeah. Mid 30s.
Whoa. I'm so work for you.
It's not a bad career really.
Well, yeah, especially if you're a hobbyist.
Yeah.
So when you were down there, so how much restoration stuff did you do down there when in 22nd Avenue? That's you were just kind of toying around with it. You really
he built a whole building for it.
Yeah,
really.
we were doing a lot of restoration.
Really?
I built that whole 5,000 square foot additional building just for the restoration side. And we had a reputation, like I said, for all the high performance cars, not just Mustangs, but I mean, we were known for, Chryslers, you name it. So yeah, we were hot and heavy into it.
So one of the things that's also interesting too is because you had been in the business with your dad, you had access to a lot of manuals.
Yep.
You had a lot of actually firsthand experience when a lot of those cars were pretty much new back in the day.
Yep.
So one of the things we were talking about, and then Chris, I'll get back to you in a second here, but this is one of the things we were talking about is, like back in the day, first thing I did, off the exhaust manifolds, change the intake, change the carburetor, change the timing, change the distributor, change this. You had a kind of a different take on that. You said, well, a lot of times the manufacturers actually did have it right from the factory for factory specs, correct?
I merely said to everybody anytime was read all the factory literature, all the performance books you could get. Like Ford had the muscle car books and everything. They told you what cam and this and that. Ford had some of the best books you could get as far as the theory of operation. And I said, follow what they did. They're paying some engineers a lot of money, and Carroll Shelby and his group, to make these cars as quick as possible, handle really well. And the same with the Corvettes, follow what the factory did. Then you can go from there. But, adding on all this stuff that because these manufacturers advertise that my header's better than their manifolds and this and that, I felt the factory stuff. And you could go to the drag strip and here's a factory car that's outrunning the guy that did all this stuff to his car.
You know what? You brought up an interesting point. Let's talk about tri-Y headers versus a set of hookers or headmen or something else. So give us a take on that, because didn't Carroll Shelby run the tri-wise on his race cars?
Yep. Yeah.
And they're kind of a goofy looking manifold. I mean, header, it's not really like a full blown, free flowing looking header, hooker or something like that, right? So share that.
Well, I mean, Carroll Shelby got a lot of input from Ford Engineering, but you got to bear in mind, Carroll Shelby and his group are a bunch of hot rodders that are seat of the pants engineers. Okay. And it's, for instance, wind tunnel testing. What did he do for the Cobras and all that? He puts string, he tapes string at all different places on the body, and then he has the other car run next to it and see where the string flows to dictate what he's going to do to try to make the body slipperier. It's all innovative. It's all very clever. And so you got to look at those guys too. I mean, and what they did. And in me in particular, when you're talking about different things, I had a scope, snap-on scope, which I still have. I spent hours on the scope doing every kind of distributor configuration and timing and playing. I did what I call 50-cent adjustments. A lot of my buddies put on tri-power and all this other stuff, and I'd go out and outrun them because you can squeeze more performance out of the motor just adjusting the fine tuning of that engine without changing major parts. There's, so much you could do. My Boss 302, the Ford book, told you exactly what fuel calibrations and everything. And I had the gas analyzer because of emission standards. And I'd put it on there and dial it in to to what Ford considered the optimum performance for that engine. So that's why all I said is just before you go aftermarket, look at everything the factory did and see if the factory has it in their engineering books saying that this is what we did and this is why we did it.
Carburetors. That's the big one. Okay, so like your 66 Shelby had the Le Mans Bowl, what was that, 735?
715.
715, okay. So then you get into Boss 302s. Boss 302 had a 780,
yep.
But yet a 428 had a 735.
Yes, and people would ask me that all the time. Why does the 428 have a smaller carb than a Boss 302? And the Z28 ran a 780.
Mm-hmm.
It's because SCCA rules stated that you could only run whatever that came from the factory. You couldn't change carburation or any of that. Well, they knew that the engines could produce more power with a bigger carburetor. So they went and equipped them with the 780, whereas the Cobra Jet didn't need the 780, and they weren't really racing the Cobra Jets except drag racing. So that's why the Z28 and the Bosses came with 780s, because they could tweak the carburetor for more performance because of their cylinder heads were better, everything of that nature.
So if they came equipped with that, then they, even though it might have been a little over carbureted
Right.
at the time,
Yep.
but they were, it was more about racing.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, when you so tell us about some of the cars that you're doing in the restoration shop right now.
Okay, so yeah, so we got quite a variety. I particularly, my thing that I like are the Broncos.
Mhm.
So we have a first gen Bronco, we have a second gen Bronco, which is, those are starting to come around now.
78, 79.
Yeah, 78, 79, and this one's a freewheeling edition, which is it was like a special package for its day, and so we're building that one, full frame off restoration on that.
I might add that I have a 79 Ford Bronco that I bought new at Bill Curry, and your dad rebuilt the transmission because I complained about it back in the day, and it had a 351 M in it.
Yeah.
Which that was a terrible motor. Nothing you could do that.
Well, it wasn't that they were such bad motor, because I daily drive a 79 Bronco.
Yeah.
It's not that they were bad motors. It's that the ridiculous emission. Well, I guess maybe part of it was gas crunch too, but emissions, they actually dished the pistons, and I think they even lowered them too.
It was
it's like 8 to 1
Right,
compression.
yeah.
So it's
They were good motors.
Yeah.
Okay. And they had potential.
I mean, I got almost 300,000 miles on my.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a 400, but it's the same. It's the same idea.
well, okay. So like, what did we do? We went to Honest Charlie's or Automotive and put a 4-barrel intake on it, put a 4-barrel carburetor.
I did do that.
You did do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
it was an Edelbrock intake on it.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's nothing you could do because it was a
Yeah.
low compression engine.
I mean, it was it was 156 horse and
a 5,000 pound truck.
Pounds of torque. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So go on. Talk a little bit more about that Bronco, because I'm a big Bronco
well,
fan.
we got the 79 Bronco. We have a couple of
F100.
Yeah, exactly. F100 that we're putting a Coyote in. We have a 69 Chevelle. That's probably our wildest one going on right now. But
Twin turbo.
It's a twin turbo. It's a Nelson Racing engine.
What do you see for a mix right now? What percentage of the cars that you guys are doing are, and is there a generational shift going on? So in other words, like an old fart like me, I'm traditional, I'm old school, I'm
You're still
fine
a
with
kid as far as I'm concerned.
I'm fine with a 289 or Cleveland or a 429 or a Boss Red too. But what percentage of people kind of want to keep their cars somewhat mostly original versus the Coyote swaps and I won't mention that other bow tie swap thing that people do but you do. But see, you're not relegated strictly to Ford. You do GM stuff.
Yeah, we've done quite a few LS
we got
swaps.
a Studebaker sitting there right now.
LS
we just worked on 2 Studebakers in a row.
Yep.
Avantis?
No. This was a
Golden Hawk. It's a Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Hawk.
Yeah, and then
we had a Commander.
Yeah, the Commander. That one was pretty. That was a custom, fully custom car
on it.
Yeah,
really highly custom.
Right. Yeah, it was 289.
No, it was 230. It was 236.
Oh,
235 point something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it a mix between resto mods versus kind of original cars, or are we going more resto mod now?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I'd say it's like 90%.
Yeah,
resto mod is what people want. I mean, they love the styling inside and out of those old cars, but they don't like the brakes. They don't like the having to pump it a bunch. They don't like, the handling.
They want creature comforts.
They want all the
they
want modern air conditioning. They want modern power steering.
So give us a rough idea, cost, time to build one of these, the process. In other words, I'm coming to you, Forte's garage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got this vintage Chevrolet or vintage Mustang or vintage Challenger or something like that. We'll stick with pony cars. All right, so I want to put a crate motor Hemi in it, or a crate motor Chevrolet, or a crate motor Ford Coyote. Where am I going with all this? What's this going to cost me? 6-speed?
Yeah. All right. So, generally speaking, if we were to build, I start with, if we were to build the whole car, restore the whole car, frame off, restoration, the whole 9 yards, paint, everything, you're probably going to be spending $150,000. That's a general figure. But let's just say you're coming in and the car's already painted. I get a lot of this too. The car is already painted. It already runs and drives, but they want, an engine upgrade. Their motor's all tired. The transmission's tired. Rear end's tired. Suspension, all that stuff. So we do all the upgrading of the mechanicals. Then you're probably in like the 50 to 100,000.
Okay, so
add air conditioning.
But the 150 is like, we're talking from scratch, rebuilt, all brand new. Plus,
all brand new metal.
I already have the cost of the car. Or is that parts and labor, or is that?
That's parts and labor.
Parts and labor. Okay. Mm-hmm. Plus the cost of the car.
Plus the cost of the car. Yeah. Okay. And then it can go up from there because some people get really crazy.
Well, like the guy you did Gary's car, the Camaro. That was an extreme case.
Yeah,
exactly.
LT4.
Yeah. And then, but by comparison, like for example, the green Shelby, the one I praised, the 66 car.
Yeah.
So that was just, you guys just basically freshened that car up, right?
Exactly. Yep.
But you kept it all original.
Yes.
For the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yep. Kept it. And that comes in too, but that is rarer these days. Yeah.
So time wise to do, let's say to restore that Shelby versus to build a resto mod. If I sit down with you, so in other words, a restored car that we're going to kind of go original, but yet versus a car that we're going to go completely resto mod time wise to do one of those cars.
Yeah. So it actually comes out to about the same. It's going to be about 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
That's what somebody can.
Whether we're going full factory restoration or, a resto mod, it's still about the same. As long as I'm not having to make, like, there's some cars. I have that 69 Chevelle that I'm talking about. I mean, we're having 3D printed parts. We're having, like, he wants one-off everything. Mm-hmm. We made every engine bay panel custom. That's going to be longer. But, as far as general build, general resto mod.
Okay.
About 18 months. Yeah.
All right. So then basically, so take us through the process. You meet with the guy, you establish a budget, and then you kind of set the parameters. What about, all right, you know what? I don't really like this. Can we change this? Can we do that? How often does that happen?
That's all the time. Yeah. And then throughout the whole process.
Okay.
That's what makes it 18 months is they, not usually they don't know what they want. And we help them along the way because sometimes they have ideas that are just, it's not going to work. It's not going to work out. I don't know if it's because of TV or whatever, but they'll have ideas about daily driving this car or whatever. And I'll say, this is going to be uncomfortable if you daily drive it with the situation. This cam is too big for street. This and air. They want this radical cam and air conditioning on the car. And, there's all kinds of stuff. We try to guide them into what we think they will like as well. Based on our recommendations. Yeah.
We get cars from body shops that say they restore cars. And they can do beautiful body and paint work, but mechanically they don't know how to put the car together. We got a lot of that over the past.
That's the majority of
It's a big,
Well, your main function though, your main shop deal is basically you do all the mechanicals and the fabricating, everything like that. So the paint work and the body work, you would generally outsource anyway, right?
It depends. I mean, we've been painting cars now.
Oh, have you?
For a while.
We've always done the sheet metal.
Yeah. We always do the metal.
We had a K5 Blazer. He had to build half the panels because you can't buy anything for it. He'd take a panel off, and behind it are 3 more panels that are just rotted away.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That
really thing was a disaster.
They put lots of metal together and no way to drain this is the 67 to 72 era. Yeah. They have like a frame within a frame in their bodies, especially in the front cowl area.
You got to make them parts, and that takes time.
Yeah.
So what is it about this business that you like? What is it that kind of turns you on about what you do?
Well, I like seeing things go from just a rotten state to beautiful again. That whole process. But me in particular, I love the metalwork.
Do you really?
Yeah. I'm more,
he's really
he's like
fabricating.
He's a human encyclopedia over there.
Yeah.
I'm more of an artist.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So then now how are you guys staffed? How many people you got working within the organization?
There's about 10 of us now.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good shop. Good size shop, 10 people.
Yeah. There's a fair amount. We get
and me.
Yeah.
And you.
They have to tolerate me.
Well, you have to have a walking book. You have to say, no. Which brings up, what else we have on your list there? Dom was gracious enough to bring a list of stuff we were going to talk about here.
Oh,
by the way, real quick, tell everybody where you're located.
Oh yeah, we're at 11495 66th Street. So it's just basically just north of the Bryan Dairy overpass on the east side of the road.
Okay.
You'll see us.
And you have a website?
Yeah. fortesonline.com.
Okay. And then you have a Facebook page and social media and all that stuff?
Yeah. You can find us. Yep. Instagram, Fortes Classic, Facebook.
And a lot of
Fortes Classic Garage.
A lot of word of mouth.
That's the majority of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the majority of it.
Well, I've been around for,
a year or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell everybody now I'm 3/4 of a century old.
Mm-hmm.
3/4 ago. Wow.
Yeah, so
you got me beat by 5 years. I'll be 70 this year. Oh my God. It's hard to believe. Oh my God. But anyway, all right. So what do we got on your list here?
Well, actually, I started out earlier and saying, get as many, I don't care what you own, Nova, Corvette, Mustang, get as many factory shop manuals as possible, not Chilton's or Mitchell or anything, because they're handy to have, even if you're not an expertise, but you can bring it to some place to work on it and have the factory shop manuals.
Actually, we've had people drop off kind of rare cars,
Yeah.
and they have the shop manuals with it, and that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a 63 Buick Special right now with a V6 that's been 4 different places, and the guy spent a fortune. He's got the factory shop manual, and we're trying to go ahead.
I was going to say, how frustrating is that, to your point right now? So you get a car that was at this shop, then it went to another shop, and then it went to another shop, And now everybody's been in there, had their mitts into it, and messed around with it. And now you guys have to sort it out. So what do you do, Dom? Do you start from
first
scratch?
you gotta look and find out what. First of all, you prefer to have any documentation that they have to go over and see what's been done. And this guy had a book of work. And then you got to look and see how much of it, I'll call him Mickey Moused it, as far as try to straighten out, wiring and you name it. And then once you get those, you got to address those things. And like Chris has to deal with the customers more than me. He will have me come in on some of it. But, you've got to show them what we're seeing that is definitely not right before we can get into trying to figure out what exactly is wrong. So you got to straighten out all of the stuff that happened on top of it.
What's harder to do? Is it harder to sort out the mechanicals or harder to sort out the electrical aspect of it?
I would say probably the mechanicals.
Really?
Yeah, because it's getting increasingly hard to find parts.
That's it.
So electrical, I got really great electrical guys, and we can work through. We have lots of workarounds. There's a lot of ways to work through the electrical side of it. But
what's your thought on that? Like for example, let's say you do have an electrical spaghetti mess there you got to deal with. So do we go with like an aftermarket painless wiring? Do we try to find factory stuff? What do you do?
It just depends on the situation, but a lot of times it ends up being we'll start with like a painless type of harness if it's been butchered so bad that it's just not savable. We'll start with that, and that's not cheap. I mean, I have to take your whole car apart to to put in harnesses a lot of times, a lot more than people think.
Well, you get people install stereos too, and they don't pay attention, especially in computer controlled cars today. They have frequency sensors. Well, you put a power amp cable over the top of some wire harness that has to do with the engine drivetrain. Okay, it's going to affect the frequency signal to the computer.
Oh,
and gives a drivability issue. I had a kid with a Alfa Romeo that run terrible. He put a stereo in. When I look, he put the subwoofer speaker, which has got the big magnet. He stuck it on this metal box. The metal box was the computer.
Oh,
so it was, EMF was making this thing
do all kinds of weird
stuff. Well,
stuff.
and actually, I say wiring. That's actually a new problem though that we're having is getting computers. Like I have a Fox body. I have a 93, and finding computer. I had to send my computer out to some rebuilders. They said it's too far gone. Finding stuff is
okay. So that brings up an interesting point. Now I want to get into the emissions thing with you, Don. All right. So Chris, for example, let's just say I went out and I bought, I got real stupid one day and I went out and bought a brand new 2005 Ford GT. I did, but I'm just saying if I did, because there was four of them sitting on the showroom floor at Walker Ford one day. And my wife's sister said, why don't you just get rid of all those old cars you got and just buy yourself a Ford GT? I said, because my old Shelby has a carburetor, a points distributor, and it's like I can see it, feel it, touch it, sniff it, and figure it out. My concern would be, and this is back then, so to your point, Chris, is had I bought that GT, okay, and here we are 20 years later, what happens to all the computer, the electronic? Does it at some point become obsolete? Now, to your point about the Fox body Mustang, which basically only had a CD or a DME box in it or something like that.
EC4.
So what do you do in a case like that? You can't run the car without it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is options, but like, for instance, mine's a mass airflow car. I can buy a brand new computer that's plug and play to a Fox body, but I have to switch back to the air density, which is the older, a more primitive system for people who don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I lose a little bit of drivability.
So you can't. So there's products
options
out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can retrofit.
Yeah. You can retrofit. It's not the best scenario. It's not like you can just have a factory part like what would be preferable.
Okay. So is that going to be a concern though for us car guys down the road? So you're talking 80s. So now we're getting into the 90s and 2000s. What happens to all this electronics? Is there a point in time when this stuff becomes obsolete and you can't get the parts, or is technology moving so far in that direction that, oh, no big deal, we'll just take it to whoever and they can just get in there and work their little electrical magic and computer magic?
It'll just be like anything else. It's like supply and demand. If there's enough people that and the Fox bodies are starting to come around, so I do think there'll be some options for me pretty soon here. Especially just 90s vehicles are like really
coming on
around. Yeah, there's a lot more interest right now.
And his brother,
but they'll start producing if there's enough demand for it.
His brother was working on a good friend customer's Corvette. I think it's 2005.
Yeah,
Nix.
Right, might have been.
Okay,
It was C6, I think. C5 or 6.
And the computer would go out, and all the gauges would go. You'd lose the tach, the speedometer, every gauge, but the car would run and everything, but no readout. And then it would come and go. And you cannot buy a rebuilt computer for it. Nobody rebuilds them. You can't. General Motors doesn't sell any. Also, each year they changed the computer, so he couldn't even get a used. He could only get a used one specific to his year. And he finally had to find it. He had to take a chance, and he got a good used computer, and that cured the problem. But
I say the real problem I see coming along, coming down the pipeline right now, and there's all kinds of lawsuits going on already, is they'll sell you a car, Ford, GM, whatever. They sell you that car, but they still retain the rights to the software.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to share with you or anybody else the how to.
Well, they're trade secrets.
Yeah, trade secrets.
So this is that issue over proprietary.
Yeah, it's proprietary. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Proprietary rights of the software. So, and they're not wanting to give that out.
So the manufacturer. So basically, it makes it difficult for an independent shop to be able to service and repair these vehicles versus take it to the dealership.
Yeah,
which are
well, even they have trouble. Okay, so.
They're trying to eliminate the independence, though.
The computer systems have come a long, long way, from when I started. And I have what they call breakout boxes for the EC4s and the next generation. And a breakout box, back in the old days, everybody thought, they could just read the codes, and it was done like watching a light originally. And they thought the code told them what to fix. No, it gave you an area. Then you had to really go circuit test everything. So breakout boxes was an interface with computers on one side, the harness on the other side, and I could do live reading where your scanners didn't do live reading for the longest time. Now you have laptops which does live reading, but back then it was 4 seconds delayed. So a lot of things got missed, and I love diagnostics. That's my favorite thing. So, but the computers have come tremendously.
Let's talk about emissions, because that was the first thing we all ripped off our cars back in the 70s.
Yep.
Okay. To these days, it's terribly integrated and there's not much you can do. But back in the day, so tell us your theory on that, Don, because you said sometimes it really wasn't that bad of a deal, with EGRs and all that kind of stuff. If
you didn't read the factory shop manuals, you were drilled by the magazine companies or the forums. The guy said, "Oh, I did this, this, and this." By 1968, the data showed that our cars were about 80% clean burn at a reasonable cost to the consumer. And then to get that next 1%, it drove everything up because we come out with the EGR valve, which is exhaust gas recirculation, catalytic converters come out, and so forth. And that until we got the computer systems made a lot of difference in cleanliness. We don't have EGR valves anymore and anything because a computer can calculate fuel curves, timing curves, and let me do it this way for an explanation. The computers in the old days might have made an adjustment every 25 RPM. Today, it makes it in 1 RPM or less. It can make calibration changes instantaneously. So they're so much more precise, than what they used to be. But a lot of people like you said, would unhook the emissions. If you took the Ford, everybody had their own theory of how to do the emissions. And in the Ford's case, they had 2 systems called IMCO, improved combustion, or Thermactor, which was an air pump. General Motors had air pumps, and they had controlled ignition also. Chrysler, the same. They had the lean burn. They were one of the first with a computer with a feedback carburation system. So if you understood how the system worked, you could really fine tune them still, even with the emission controls on them, and run with the factory stuff. But, you had to understand, that's what I used to do, was spend hours and hours on the scope with customers' cars, just adjusting this and adjusting that to see what I could do, and same my own car.
So let's just talk about a full-size car, big block motor versus a medium-sized car, 289, 351 size motor in there. And let's talk a little bit about mileage. So in the 60s, we still had 9-10-1 compression engines. Okay. And then this emissions crap came out, and then we went to dogged out 8-1s like our Broncos have and stuff. So what was the mindset back then? And this is way before oxygen sensors and all that other weird stuff. We're talking, like you talked about that, that Chrysler's Leanbird with that goofy little thing on the side of the air cleaner, Ford with their, they said either Thermatra or air pump. Chevrolet had,
Ford had MCU to start with, then EC1, EC2, EC3, EC4 on up in the computer systems.
So is it reasonable to sit there and assume that you could have a 60s car with a average size V8 motor and still get 20 miles to the gallon? Or are we all relegated to 8, 9, 10 miles to the gallon back in the day?
Oh, no. I mean, you can do it. I'll use the Boss 351 for an example. In 71, it was still a high compression motor. Cam spec was, up to par. 72 came out with the HO. They retarded the camshaft 4 degrees. Okay. All we had to do was change the timing chain and gears to get it back up to a 71 spec, which we used to do. So yeah, you can still do quite a few things. He's done quite a bit.
Yeah, but what about the gas mileage particularly? That's what he's asking.
Yeah, you're only going to get incremental, not leaps and bounds. Okay, it's just
okay. So what is the key thing? If you have an older motor, we got about 8 minutes left, 7.5 minutes, right? But can we go to the top maybe just a bit? Well, we'll play it by ear. But anyway, so to have an older car like that, like a 289, like your Mustang, you heard stories that, well, my 65 289 Mustang got 18, 19 miles a gallon. Meanwhile, my Lincoln got 10 miles a gallon, 9 miles a gallon.
My 93, I was getting maybe like 17, 16, 17. That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's town. Real good. That's real good.
I wasn't complaining about that. It's 5 liter.
Yeah. No, there's fine tuning you could do to the older ones, or like the Fox body is talking about, for instance. The throttle position sensor TPS, they're factory set, and they weren't adjustable. But I found I could take them off and drill the hole that screwed it down, and I could get fine increments of adjustment in the TPS to make a difference in the throttle response, which picked up a little bit of fuel economy. So yeah, there's little things you can do to fine tune. And
so do you think that because today with all the technology and the computers and all the stuff that's on the motors today, granted they're smaller, but so a starter, compared to an old motor, that because mileage is a big issue with a lot of people. Okay. So, and people say, I don't want an old car because the mileage is terrible. The reliability is terrible. And that's false. Right, Chris?
I mean, you can make them fairly reliable.
Reliability.
The mileage though, there's no way to compete with technology where you're, like a Maverick, the new Maverick is in the 30 miles per gallon. There's no way we're getting near that.
If you take your Bronco that you're talking about, which came with a 2-barrel, it was 350 CFM 2-barrel.
Mm-hmm.
So just changing to an Edelbrock or a Holley 600, then you got 200 CFM primaries, and a better intake manifold for the fuel distribution and atomization. It'll pick up the fuel economy over the 2-barrel. It did better.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just in that, in its case. Now, just putting dual exhaust on a vehicle doesn't normally improve anything. Okay, it might sound different. Might make you sound like it's quicker.
Just depends on what their expectation is,
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
And I've always said, these guys that'll do duals, if you're changing the back end of the airflow, engine's an air pump. That's air speed and air volume. Okay. You're affecting the air volume and air speed by putting duals. But if you don't mess around with the front end, which is your intake side, there's no benefit because you're affecting the air pump on its overall flow characteristics.
I think you can get it plenty dependable though.
Yes,
you said you asked dependable,
definitely.
Or and or gas mileage. Dependable, we can make them pretty dependable.
Yep.
gas mileage is that's more of the where you're kind of locked in.
Your service periods are still critical. Oil changes. The oil today is much better than it used to be, but on the older motors, you got to make sure it's got high zinc, because of the camshafts and everything. So, but I mean, servicing the engines and everything, tuning, air filter changes, all of that is still critical to keep an engine lively and running in top shape. So,
what else you got on your list there?
Good question. Oh, well, one of my biggest things the magazine articles, because I used to do some articles for Vet Views, Mustangs and Fast Forwards, Mustang Monthly. My biggest thing that we have been drilled in for years that horsepower. And horsepower doesn't move mass. My big thing was torque. Torque is what makes your car accelerate. And so, and I'll give you an example is if your son got behind the car to push it, he can push it a lot easier than 4 of us old guys, okay? Because he's got more torque.
Yeah.
And he's got more stamina. Okay. So one of the few cars in history that always and every has a bad reputation is the Edsel, right? Well, the Edsel, we have a customer with a 58 Citation Edsel convertible, gorgeous car.
Yes, it's in the shop. I saw that. Yeah.
On the valve cover, it says E-475. One of the few cars that was 475 foot-pounds of torque. They actually painted it on the valve cover because you needed torque to move that car. Horsepower is not going to make it move. Okay. Horsepower doesn't work till you get up in the higher RPM and got the car rolling. So I always felt like the magazines needed to do more about torque. That's the spec part of it, the engine that I look at all the time on what's the stroke and the crank and everything. So
I don't know if we can do that. How much time we got, Bobby? 3 minutes?
3 minutes. Yep.
If you had to sit there and say in a minute or less, how to basically create more torque versus horsepower in an engine, what would that be?
In an engine, torque. Well, I mean, you're limited by your bore and stroke. So you put the stroker kits, that's what they call them stroker kits for, because they make the crankshaft, a stroke further out to give it more performance. Okay. So you take a 302, now they go up all the way up to 400 and some cubic inches they can do with it. I have a 408 stroker Cleveland.
Stroke and then rear gear.
Rear gear. That was guys would come in all the time, want to change cams, want to change heads, want to put dual exhaust. The cheapest thing you could do to get the most performance was change the gear ratio, because that's got more mechanical advantage, which is kind of like torque.
Applying that torque to the ground.
That torque to the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could go from a 300 gear to a 350 and notice immediate difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference, and still have somewhat decent mileage.
Well, a lot of times you got better fuel economy because the car didn't work as hard.
Okay.
350 is what our Broncos have.
Yep.
Our 79. Yeah.
Anyway, all right. What do we got for time, Bobby? 1 minute. Okay. Well, anyway, hey, Dom, I want to thank you very much for hanging out with us. We have to do this again, though. We'll have to talk. We'll have to make this like a informative, and you can sit in with us on too, Chris. Talk about,
Sure.
These are basic questions that people always want to know about. Well, what do I got to do to make my car run better? Well, what about torque? What about horsepower? What about, I want to run this carburetor. What about crankshaft? All that kind of stuff we can talk about. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
And
Appreciate it.
And celebrating our 16th year on the air, which actually technically would be tomorrow on the 13th. But we
Congratulations.
did today. Yeah. So one more time, why don't you guys give out the information on Forte's Garage if people want to come by and see you? And
Yep. Fortesonline.com. You can go to Forte's Classic on Instagram, Forte's Classic Garage on Facebook.
And phone number?
And phone number 727-554-5367.
Okay. Hey, what do they call my listeners? We're tuning into Nostalgic Radio Cars. Don't forget to check us out here every Tuesday between 7 and 8 p.m. on the Santalk Radio Network. Stay safe, drive carefully, and love you, fam.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
Listen.
Your home for original reporting.
I'm Jennifer Kuiper. President Trump heads to Beijing to meet with his Chinese counterpart, saying that they're going to have a long talk about the war with Iran, among other things.